Hi guys, it's me Malcolm, and I have some good news and great news. The great news is I finally got a ticket to see the fabulous author Cassandra Clare.
Take me to Wonderland. Take me to Wonderland.
Oh, she is one of my favorite authors ever, ever. I mean, if you all love J.K. Rowling doing Harry Potter, or Rick Riordan doing Percy Jackson, actually, that you should definitely get to know get to read books by Cassandra Clare. I mean, she did lots of awesome books from the Moral Instruments, such as City of Lost Souls. In fact, get this. Also, I have the entire collection of the Moral Instruments. I even have the Infernal Devices, great books. But I do believe one of my favorite characters is Tessa Gray. I mean, a girl who is both a downworlder and a shadow hunter. It is incredible. I certainly hope Freeform do make us do make the spin-off of this series. I would love to see the characters in action. I I even have of course the last hours. All that's missing is the last book. So excited to get that one. I even got the Dark Artifice. This. Oh, my bad. Yeah, yeah. Here's the third one as well. I even got the Eldest Curses. Another cover of City of Heavenly Fire, and the tenth anniversary edition of City and Bone. I even got this one, the the Red Scrolls of Magic. Yes, it just came last night. Yeah, and of course, I even got Ghosts of the Shadow Market, The Bane Chronicles, and Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy. Wow. I am such a huge fan. In fact, get this. Here's here's the poster that I got from the oh yeah, 4 years ago now. Wait, 5 years ago. My bad. This is definitely one of my favorites though. So moving on. I have now on to the good news. Good news. So in honor of seeing Cassandra Clare on Tuesday, I decided to re to bring back my old video of me filming her, not only her but also Leigh Bardugo, who did in a book event over at the Grove 5 years ago. Oh, my God, it's been a while though. I had When I had the video, it was trending, but it did had one flaw. It was moving sideways. Yeah, it was so hard. I wanted to delete it, but it's already trending, so I can't do that. But I've decided to upload it again, and this time it will be straight for all of you to see. Enjoy!
This is where you're such a rock star. I'm gonna be like, hello, Los Angeles! Restrain myself.
I've seen your books, they're not so shabby.
Yeah. So we don't have a ton of time to talk because we will be revealing the cover of Chain of Gold, which I already got a glimpse of, and it's beautiful. So I'm gonna talk to Cassie and ask her some deep probing questions for like 20 minutes-ish. And then we'll do an audience Q&A. We probably won't be able to take too many questions, just a few. And please, guys, no spoilers. It's a big book, and I suspect all of you have finished it, but...
I don't think so. How many of you have actually read Queen of Air and Darkness?
Okay, I don't know.
Not bad.
I read a book in a series, and I'm like...
Chapter 4, okay. That's not bad.
So no, if you ask questions, please no spoiler questions. Be kind to your fellow readers. You can ask Cassie when you come up in line.
Yes, you're always welcome to ask when you come up.
Yes. So I wanted to start with, I'm always curious when I'm talking to an author or an artist about what you think makes up your creative DNA. Like, what were the things when you were a kid that really got in your head, that you fell in love with, or maybe you didn't even realize how much they locked in for you, that impacted your work?
I mean, I think we all want to say like, it was Vanity Fair,
Sure.
and it was, the works of Proust untranslated. But it's actually always a very weird combination, I think, of things that were mushed together that you read when you were younger. So for me, kind of a strange blend of, there's some Jane Austen, there's some Lord of the Rings, but there's also
See that?
some much less artistic stuff in there. There's V.C. Andrews, definitely, which I loved when I was 11, and has a lot of really weird stuff. I reread them and was like, oh my god, these are bizarre. But I love them.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of like gothic, weird stuff in there with that. And I'm trying to think. I did love a lot of classic fantasy, the Narnia books, the Black Cauldron. Those were great and very and very informative. But also, I think a lot. My mom read a lot of murder mysteries, like a lot of Agatha Christie, a lot of like British mysteries. So I think like a big obsession that I have with England, English history, all came from reading all of those books.
I feel like I'm still kind of obsessed with British murder mysteries. Actually,
I still love them. I will still read them.
Yeah, anything British, like British Bake Off, British mysteries. Wow, British Bake Off.
Yeah, that was a big hit. I have not seen British Bake Off, but I will pretty much watch anything on Netflix that is like a British mystery that takes place in the Shetland Islands. I'm like, oh, I watch that.
But you grew up kind of all over the world, but we're both LA people too.
True.
We were in high school basically at the same time here.
We even have some people we know in common.
We do.
Hilarious.
I did a book report with one of our friends.
That's true.
We did not get a good grade, it's fine.
I don't know, there are different arguments about who didn't pull their weight in the book report, so.
It's a long-standing grudge. I always felt a little like LA had a very peculiar kind of magic to it. It's not like the magic you find other places. Is there any place, and this is a city that plays a big part in the series, is there any place that for you felt magical, or like a place that resonated for you?
I mean, yes, and I agree with you. LA is a very odd magic. People don't always, I think, see it, and I was always kind of defensive of it when I was growing up, and people would be like, oh, Los Angeles is ugly, and I'd be like, you don't know where to go. Like, you don't know where the places are that are beautiful, and you only just see like Lincoln driving from the airport. And for me, the beach is extremely magical. Then, especially if you drive up the PCH to Leo Carrillo, I love that place. And you have these sort of rocks sticking out into the water. And when I was doing research for Lady Midnight, I came up to Leo Carrillo, and I brought our mutual friend Holly Black with us. And I was Holly.
Yes.
I was researching up there, taking pictures, and a large wave came and carried Holly away. And she screamed as she was taken by the sea. And I was like, there's no point to that story, I just thought it was funny. Got her back eventually, but I was like...
Holly would be fine with that, of all people.
I mean, I heard she actually said, I'm being taken by the sea.
She would just be like, I go to meet the king of the deep.
Yeah, I was like, And also, I think up in the Santa Monica Mountains and in the Hollywood Hills, especially at night, it's just, it's extremely beautiful.
This is very interesting to me because I am not a nature person. You seem to be a nature person.
I mean, my parents were deranged nature people, and they dragged me all over the mountains and the deserts and the seas when I was a child. So I hiked all through the Santa Monica Mountains and all around the deserts,
This is my nightmare.
You would not have liked it. They made me rappel down rock slopes and stuff. I know. It was like cruelty. But but it did give me a very good picture of basically all the natural areas around LA. So actually I would also say the desert. Like if you've been to Joshua Tree, it's a beautiful place, exactly, and it's so unearthly and like a moonscape.
It's very hot,
It's
it's
not
very
always
dry.
It's not always hot. Sometimes it's cold.
Sometimes it's unbearably cold, not just
Now I live on the East Coast, and you can't just like leave New York and in 2 hours be in the total wilderness. It's not. It's much more built up. So that is something I do like about LA.
But you chose to live on the East Coast.
That is because my husband is there.
Oh.
I keep trying to explain to him that it's possible to live in a place that it doesn't snow, but nobody believes me.
But you do travel a lot,
A lot.
and a lot of your inspiration comes from travel.
That is true.
Talk to me about, we've gone on retreat together, we've done some, I love to be on retreat. I think it's this luxurious, magical thing that I never knew existed when I became a writer. And I love the feeling of being in a room full of people who are sharing the same
Experience.
misery. Well, no, it's great to look up from your laptop and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and the other person's like, me neither. But talk to me about how travel changes your experience of writing and why it's important.
I mean, I think travel changes your perspective, and I think it gives you a sense of, I don't know, the size of the world that the place that you live and the people you know are not everything. And I think it did change the way I wrote the Shadowhunters books, because I always think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I did love and was a big influence. I didn't mention it's not books, but big influence. And for those of you who've seen Buffy, there's only one Slayer, but there are vampires all over the world. So I always felt bad for the people who didn't live in Buffy's neighborhood. And I was like,
I never thought about that.
right, she's dealing locally with a problem that is clearly global.
Just like, even if you're in like San Diego, you are screwed.
Right! She can't get there fast enough to deal with your shit.
No.
Sorry. I apologize. And like, if you're in like Moscow or Shanghai, she will never get to where you are, and you'll just be devoured. So I was like, this just doesn't seem like a good system. Much as I love Buffy, there must be a better way to make sure that everybody in the world is protected. And so I think that was part of the inspiration for creating the Shadowhunters as a global organization with institutes in every city. And I think, traveling so much definitely gave me the thought, whenever I was traveling, I always think, where would the institute be in this place? So here I am in a new city, where's the institute? And it's always a fun way of looking at it.
That's really cool. Not in Joshua Tree.
There's just not enough people there to really make it worthwhile to put an institute there.
There's a reason. Okay, I know. I'm gonna get angry emails from Joshua Tree lovers. It's very hot. Okay.
I spent one night there where I was so cold I almost died.
When you woke up by 8 a.m., you were so hot you were
Yeah, that
cooked
did
in your
happen,
tent.
but it was very cold during the night.
Our people wandered the desert a long time, Cassie.
That's
There's no
true.
reason to go back. Okay.
That's what my mother says to me about Brooklyn.
They have delicious snacks
Very
in
good
Brooklyn.
bagels.
Very good bagels. Okay, so travel is a big influence, and you've built this world that has been kind of ever expanding. For those who don't know what's coming, this is the end of the Dark Artifices,
Yes.
and we're about to embark on the Lost Hours.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes!
but then we also have the Wicked Powers to look.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I like to know where everything is coming, so I can anticipate. But you also have your first novel for adults coming out too.
That's
Yes, queen!
I heard the story of where you got the idea for this, and I loved it. So I'm going to force you to share it again because I loved it so much.
Okay, this is actually something Lee and I have in common, so I'll also embarrass her. She also has her first adult novel coming out soon. Much sooner than mine.
I like to call it a novel for adults because adult novel sounds.
Adult novel sounds a little, bound chicka bow. Okay, so I was watching reality TV, which I do more often than I like to admit, and it was a series about people who have been in, terrible, I think it was I Shouldn't Be Alive, that series, which I love, because you know that they are going to survive, because otherwise it would be called I Am Dead. And it was a guy who had been kidnapped and forced to be the body double for one of Saddam Hussein's sons. who he had to spend a lot of time with, and the guy was terrible. He was, basically shackled to his side while he like murdered and pillaged and did terrible things to people, and yet he was forced to be with him, and in some ways he was this guy's only friend, like because he was supposed to protect him and even stand in for him, and he was the only person that Uday Hussein had to talk to. So I thought, wow, what a fascinating idea. And so I thought, I basically came up with a imaginary secondary world. So this is like Westeros, or a world, it's a secondary fantasy, a world I built myself that's not part of our world, in which a boy is taken to be the body double for a crown prince of a kingdom, who he looks very much alike to, and it's not exactly the same in the sense they have a very complicated relationship, but he is, again, in a situation where he is the only person who really knows the crown prince, who is not a particularly nice guy and is stuck in the position of being like, do I do something? Like, do I just keep my head down and try to get through this, or do I do something about the fact that may soon be ruled by a maniac? So, yeah.
Tell them about the title, though.
Oh, right. So there's a point where in the reality show, and I have no idea if this actually happened in real life or not, but where the guy's like, I don't want to do this job, and his boss is like, it's too bad, you're not a real person, you're just a bullet catcher. And so I called the book Sword Catcher.
Oh, that's right. Oh, smart lady, I love it. So I'm going to ask you the question people keep asking me in the hopes that you'll have a better answer than I do.
Oh no!
Yes,
right away.
Which is, why adult? Like, why I love writing YA. I know you love writing YA. We've continued to write it, and obviously you have these 2 new series, so it's not going anywhere. But what was the difference in this story that told you that this is adult and not another young adult series?
It's true. I could have been YA. It could have worked as YA probably, but I was really not. I mean, I think when you attach to a story, you sort of attach to the idea of characters at a certain point in their lives. And with City of Bones, when Jason Clare Leigh came into my mind, they were teenagers, and I don't know why, they just were. And I knew immediately this was the story about teenagers. And I think that what makes an adult book is not the bow chicka bow factor, but the fact that you're talking about people who are older and they just have different concerns. They feel differently about the world, they feel differently about their identity, they're in a different place in where their identity is growing. I think that's why a lot of times when we see, people make, I was thinking about Rick Riordan's adaptations of his books, and they change the ages of the characters, and I was like, you can't change the ages of characters without changing those characters. Because what is appropriate behavior for a 12-year-old is not appropriate behavior for a 16-year-old, and what is appropriate behavior for a 16-year-old is inappropriate for a 21-year-old. So you wind up with this really weird situation where the characters are not acting, they cease to act like people because they are not acting the way you would expect somebody of that age to act. And so I feel like that is one of the things that has specifically struck me about the differences in writing YA and the differences in writing a book for adults, is that you are addressing the concerns and feelings that people who are in adulthood have, rather than the concerns and feelings that people who are in their years of being a teenager have.
Yeah, I feel like there's something finite in the way that we write YA. You're trying to get to the revolution, or you're trying to get to the big battle, or you're trying to get to the prom, or whatever it is. They can all be happening at once. But you're trying to get to sort of that moment, and that is the moment that the series ends, as opposed to this kind of longer view of adult fiction.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I also think that the way that people relate to their family members is completely different. Sure. Like the way that you relate to your siblings when you are 16 and the way that you relate to your siblings when you are 25 is hopefully completely different.
Yeah, if you're making the same decisions like at 36 as you are at 16, like...
Well, right, that's not why you can't age up characters without thinking about their difference in age, because say you have 12-year-olds chasing each other around, hitting each other with teapots, then you're like, I'm going to make them 30. Same scene, they're chasing each other around, hitting each other with teapots. It's suddenly really weird. Yeah. And you're like, there's something wrong with those 30-year-old guys who are hitting each other with teapots.
Go figure. Curious that. Okay, so I think I'm going to go to the audience, because I bet there are a lot of excited people with questions. Any hands? Oh, okay. I'll start there.
Well, Cassandra, I guess you heard about Shadowhunters, the TV show ending next year, right?
Uh-huh.
If they do make a spin-off of the show, which series adaptation should they do? The Infernal Devices or the newly Dark Artifice?
Well, they don't own the rights to anything except the Infernal Devices. But they are actually working on the Infernal Devices and making and developing a series out of it. So... I've met the writer, and she seems cool, and yeah, I know. And you know, I have complicated feelings about it, but I read the pilot, and it was actually pretty good. So, I know. They're all making sad noises like whales that are dying.
I should say now, I don't think you're free to answer a ton of questions about this, so no like casting questions and stuff. Oh my god, I knew it! Oh
yeah, no, it's not anywhere near that stage. It's out there. They attached some new people to it recently, and they are gonna, figure out where they're going with it. But it took them 3 years to make the television show, like almost 6 years to make the movie. So stuff in entertainment often goes quite slowly. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, with the bun.
Oh, nice. How are you? Hi. I was wondering what was the hardest thing about writing this last book for you, your biggest challenge?
This last book almost killed me. You were around. I think
it was around.
Awful
it was
noises.
Fairly terrifying.
It was really bad. Never again am I going to tell a book from like 14 different viewpoints. That was a bad idea I had because you have to, you create, for every character as a viewpoint, there's an arc and there's a story about that character that needs to be wrapped up. And I did love telling the story of this huge family and their friends and this big group of people, but at the same time, it was definitely agony to try to like kind of pull it all together and make a satisfying ending while at the same time leaving open what was going, some doors for what would happen in the Wicked Powers. I think for me what was hardest about the book is that there's a really, terrible loss in the second book. At the end of the book, we lose someone. I know, there's a really terrible death. Very hard to write, and what's really difficult about this book was because what's hard to write about death is not so much the one scene where someone dies, it's how everybody deals with it afterwards. And so this book, a lot of it, is about making meaning out of loss. And that, I think, is you have to really go into your own emotions of loss that you have experienced and draw on that, and that can be very hard.
I found that really hard too. I was in King of Scars, there's a character who's grieving a loss from Crooked Kingdom, and it was... But I'm not sorry. She's all the pain, and I'm like, but I will say, but for me, writing those scenes as somebody who's lost somebody very close to me, you do call up these emotions that you don't really want to call up.
I think it's like method acting almost. There, you have to actually tap into your own feelings about this thing, and so tapping into your own grief is difficult.
The thing to me that's funny is I'll be sitting and writing. I used to really have disdain for people who said they cried when they wrote. I was like, oh, come on. You're such a genius, you made yourself cry. And I'm sitting there writing, I'm like, and I remember my friend Morgan being like, what? You're doing it. Just stop doing it. You can't stop. All the way in the back, another bun. Yes, just like, everybody put your hair in a bun and I'll call it.
I can project my voice.
Okay.
So, I started reading these books 10 years ago when I was a freshman, and now I teach high school English. So, what would you say to those students starting out now, reading your books? Because I'm going to be teaching City of Bones.
You've got a storm coming.
You mean about the experience of reading?
I guess what they can look forward to this series, because it changed the way that I read.
Oh.
It did.
That's lovely. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I guess I would say that one of the things that I hope that it will do for them is help is be a world that they could get lost in. that this is a very big world, that there are many stories in this world, many stories in the naked city, and that, like, you know, they're not, I hope it will help them to not be scared of picking up, you know, books that have different, for one thing, like, I think one of the things that's great about my readers is that they have transitioned past the point of being like, I will only read a book with these main characters, because there are now so many books and so many short stories. And so we have Jason Clary, we have Emma and Julian, we have Tessa and Will and Jem. And hopefully we love them all. And so hopefully it will give them a way of entering into a world where they can love, you know, so many different characters. Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Okay, the wiggly hand. Yeah. You can yell.
What inspired you to write, like, all of these books? Like, where did this inspiration come from?
You know, I think stories just kind of like come to us and sort of pressure us to tell them. You know, it's not really I mean, I don't want to say there's no voluntary choice aspect of it, but usually there is you know, something will pop into my head, a scene or a story or just a relationship between characters, and I will, you know, jump up and want to, like, write that down. So, I don't know, it comes in pieces. All right, Black Jacket?
What or who inspired you to write about Drusilla? And what inspired you to write about her personality, knowing that she's the youngest and she feels excluded a lot of the time, but she feels like she's a lot older than she is?
I love Drew, and I think, you know, one of the things that inspired me about Drew is that she's not the same, you know, kind of body type as most of the rest of the Shadowhunters. They do exercise like 14 hours a day, so. But she's kind of a rounder girl, and as a plus-size lady, I wanted to see, you know, that, you know, my own experience reflected in a book, and I think the experience of lots and lots of girls who, you know, are not, you know, as the skinniest girls in the world, but are still, yeah, fit and beautiful and happy. And I wanted to show that in Drew. And so, you know, I think also there's that part of her that I totally relate to, that when I was growing up, I loved horror movies and anything dripping blood with, you know, skeletons and gross things, and she loves that stuff, and so do I. One of my favorite scenes in Queen of Air and Darkness is when she watches horror movies with Kieran, because he's like, I mean, he's like, what is why? Okay, Richard?
Okay, so my question is that when you write, do you try to write more original stuff, or do you try to deliver to your audience like what you think that they want to read?
I think that what they want to read is more original stuff. I mean, I think that that a lot of times I get, can I have more of this, can I have more of that, can I have more of this particular, like, 2 characters or whatever, and I always think, okay, what you want is not that specific thing, like more of this. What you want is more of that feeling. And so what I try to do is do something different, but that will also replicate that feeling of reading enjoyment or suspense or pleasure.
So the dedication for Queen Fair and Darkness says, for Sarah, she knows what she did. So what did Sarah do?
Poor Sarah, I know. She's gotten so much crap, and I was like, man, I feel bad now. She came up with the idea for Thule with me. And I was like, that is really dark. I like it. Okay, red, blue wristbands. Actually, you all have them. I'm sorry. That was dumb. I know. It's all of you.
First, I would say thank you for letting this experience happen, because so many authors don't, and it gets us to interact with you in a great way, and we really appreciate it. For advanced, she kind of already talked about it. What is the biggest con and pro of advancing to adult writing and avoiding that 50 Shades of Grey, Game of Thrones type oh, you're writing adult fiction, so it's obviously one of those two things. What is the hardest thing to get over that or go around that? How you said the bow chicka bow wow.
Well, I am a little confused about what 50 Shades of Grey and Game of Thrones have in common, but I am curious. Oh yeah. A lot of boobs. Yeah. A lot of boobs.
When you hear adult fiction, people think of it's just how you say the bow chicka wow wow. It's all just that. How do you get around that?
I mean, for most of the world, adult fiction is fiction. It's just fiction. That's true. What we write is children's fiction. And I think we spend a lot of our lives trying to kind of shake off what comes with being told that you're a children's writer, which is that you must write a certain kind of book that is very didactic and sort of tells people how they should behave, and that is very moralistic, and that doesn't represent people the way they actually are, but represents a kind of people the way that they should be. And I think that is some of the things that we struggle with, and not having yet really gotten into the world where I am an adult writer, that is something that I'm actually glad, that is one of the things that I hope not to have to deal with, but I do find it very frustrating when it is something that is aimed at us. How do you feel about it?
I think that in the writing of adult characters, or people who are going into a story intended for adults, there's really not this dividing line that people want to believe there is. The fact is, young adult is largely a marketing category. If you look at all of the different books in young adult, To All the Boys I've Loved Before is next to The Hate You Give, which is next to The Mortal Instruments, which is next to, there's a wide variety, and it's very hard to actually point to what these books necessarily have in common. And I think people spend a lot of time trying to define young adult, because the truth is, it's just a way for people to find books, right? And my theory is that fiction, as opposed to adult fiction, was not answering a call for stories, right? And it's why people attack young adults so readily, because they hate the idea of people like you moving markets, right? When you start to control the money, that's when people start to pay attention. And the first strategy they try to employ is to make you embarrassed about what you're reading. And I don't think it's a coincidence the majority of people who are creating that work are women. So as I enter the adult world of fiction, I suspect we're both going to have to deal with a lot of people saying, who have disdain for us and contempt for us. It's the nature of being a genre writer. It's the nature of being a young adult writer. And I really don't care. It used to drive me crazy and make me sad, and I'd be like, but I want to be credible. And now I don't give a damn, because I'm like, well, I sell books. So, Anyway.
That's a good attitude.
Okay. There are people way in the back.
Way in the back. Well, like I see a purple hand there.
There's somebody with a purple pen in hand.
Yes.
Shout your question. Can't hear you. No, really, I can't hear anything. No. Hold on, just a second. Do it like telephone style. Say the question.
This was the first time I felt passionately enough about an author to drive 3 hours to get an autograph. I was wondering if there were any authors or celebrities that you would do this for as well.
Other than me.
Of course, I would definitely do this for you. I have done this for authors in the past. And I'm trying to think celebrities. Probably Robert Downey Jr. We all know him. I know. I had a crush on him when I was like 12, and it remains.
I actually got up at 3 a.m. and came to this very grove to camp out for wristbands for George R.R. Martin's signing.
Oh.
Yeah.
But you would do it for Stevie Nicks.
No, the only person I stand is Stevie Nicks. Okay? I would do anything for her. But I deliberately did not dress this way when I went to meet her, because I didn't want her to be like, hello, weirdo. Yeah. Okay. There's.
Okay. People wiggling their books back and forth.
Put your hand up. We're going all the way back again.
I know. I just felt we should try to reach them. They're floating on an iceberg way in the distance. Okay.
Hi. Do you have any advice for aspiring writers?
And we look at each other. I usually say read as much as you possibly can. I've never met a writer who was a good writer, a successful writer, a happy writer who wasn't somebody who read a lot. So, when you have, while you have the time, just attack books, read them all, devour them.
And if you want to write YA, don't just read YA. If you want to write fantasy, don't just read fantasy. You want to broaden your palette. So, and people often ask me if they need to be English majors or they need to enroll in the MFA. No, you don't. But what you do need to do is go online and still their syllabi. You can see what they're reading and not pay the price. But most classes now post their syllabi online, and it's a great way to sort of figure out how to broaden that palette that you're drawing from when you write.
Okay, I think we have time for a couple more. Okay, right there. Glasses?
Oh.
Yes.
What is, I just want to say one, thank you so much for writing these incredible books. Both of you, really, you guys are both just incredible, inspiring women that changed my life. And I want to say thank you. Love you. And the second thing I wanted to say was, what inspired you to write such an incredible story of William and Tessa? I've never read something so incredible and amazing where I was rooting for every single person, where I was so connected to all of them, and at the very end I cried so much that I had like 6 boxes of tissues on my bed.
Aw. I mean, I'm trying to think if it was something specific. I mean, it was
Just for the people who didn't hear, she asked about Will and Jem
and Tessa.
how this came to be.
I mean, originally it was a retelling of Tale of Two Cities, which you don't all have to read. Many people have been like, why did you make me read that? It was really boring. I loved it. When I was a kid and I read the end of the book in which there is a tragic sacrifice made by one character for the sake of love, I cried a lot. And I thought I would like to be able to bring that kind of feeling of crying a lot, but in a good way, to other people. So, you know, a lot of what is in, I think, you know, the Clockwork series is sort of, it's not so much as a retelling of Tale of Two Cities, an attempt to kind of capture what is happening in Tale of Two Cities, which is, you know, a sort of a selfless love that is so intense that you would do anything for somebody else, even give up your life. And that was what I was trying to capture there, and I think that you know, that's what makes us feel it so strongly.
It really worked. I'm gonna pick this lady over here.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Are you going to be doing any more autistic Shadowhunter characters in the future?
Well, so did you like Ty?
Yeah.
Good, I think there's definitely a space for more Shadowhunters who are on that spectrum, but I probably wouldn't reproduce Ty exactly. You know, and I think that there's definitely, you know, spaces to write characters who are, you know, have ADHD or characters who have dyslexia and kind of dive into that. And it's been wonderful, like, writing Ty and experiencing that. And we're going to see much more of him in The Wicked Power. So I think in terms of neurodivergent characters, I want to kind of spread out and do, you know, characters that are, you know, diverse. But I'm really, really glad I feel like Ty. I really appreciate that.
One more. Or do we need one more?
How much time?
One more?
One more? Oh boy. Oh man. Okay. This is tough.
A lady with the glasses
Okay.
and the gray shirt. I made the call.
There you go.